This is a European chestnut-leaved oak. Now, that was a very important tree to the European farmers. It fed lots of their animals. They made homes from it. The mother tree of this is in Mossvale Park in South Gippsland, and when I took acorns from her, she was 3.5 to 4 feet in diameter with a wonderful wide spread. And in weather like this, or worse weather, there could be 20 or 30 cows under that tree, or 100 sheep seeking shelter. And in the autumn, the tree drops food for them, acorns, and people can eat acorns as well. There's an emperor's oak here. I think there's a hooded oak here with a leaf that's slightly bent over. There's a Chinese fan palm there. There's a misnamed oak in there. I say that because the acorn came from Melbourne Botanic Gardens and it was listed as a variety of the white oak, and then they've changed their mind 20 years later. I've retained the tree. It is fast growing and tough and makes lots of acorns, but I still don't know what it is. It doesn't really matter. None of these had names, I don't think, until men gave them names. There's also a Chilean wine palm here, as well as a fan palm from China, and I didn't name it earlier, but 20 feet away is another Chilean wine palm, so that someday there will be 2 here, as there are over that way, 2 more, and 2 more elsewhere. So hopefully some of them will survive. And tucked in here below the tough pines and the tough oaks, down slope a little, are lindens and linden or European lime trees, 3 different species, and a couple of honey locusts and a chestnut. Here is a pomegranate, which I was hoping would do well because it likes dry land, can like dry land, but it doesn't get enough sun anymore. And a medlar from Europe that has edible fruit, and a Siberian mulberry, and another European chestnut, and here is a scarlet oak, and then something quite rare, 2 kettlerias, that's just tin in the wind, 2 kettlerias, and they're a kind of China fir. I think Melbourne Botanic Gardens had 2 about 30 years ago. I've only grown 3, and they're all in this area, but they're quite tough. There's only 1 species in the genus, so there's 1 here, 1 there, and 1 further up the hill. And on the north, you have to have things that are low. So these are all low. Arizona cypress, a peach tree, a palm tree, a Cape chestnut from South Africa. Again, another Mexican arbutus, a Banksia, and I don't have many Banksias, but I love them. They're native, and they're almost all the time. I don't hear the wattlebird at the moment, but virtually all day long, and certainly morning and evening, there are 2 or 3 wattlebirds in that Banksia. They just love Banksias. If I had more room, I'd have more Banksias. And the black cockatoos visit us here every day. They're here for about 9 months a year. They find quite a few things to eat, all the pines and most of the hakeas, and they tear into the black woods for grubs. And they're welcome to them because they're beautiful birds. And then there's a tree lucerne or 2 in here as well. And there's a loquat for fruit. And there is a cheer pine from the Himalayas. There are 3 on the property, but they're really quite rare. Beautiful long leaves, lovely bark, and then another pine from the Sierra Nevadas, and if you've got good eyes you can probably see cones up there because they are 10 to 12 inches. They are large. That's a big cone pine, and you can see some pine cones under it in a few minutes, and fairly large seeds as well. And not far away is the largest of the pine nuts, and it's a Torrey pine from south of Monterey in the Monterey Peninsula. And then there are oaks here, and those are fairly large trees, all evergreen. And that's because, again, we get northwest winds, which are horrific, west winds and southwest winds. So there is a pressure here, a wind pressure, a beating that goes on, and a drying that goes on. So down below where we live and where we have fruit trees and a garden, we want protection. So tucked in here are pines and oaks to block most of that wind. And there's a Portuguese evergreen oak and a Mexican evergreen oak, and I forget what the third one is. And down in here are some children of walnuts. And when I say that, I mean they are wild seedlings from various walnuts. Walnuts used to be grown from seed. Now humans are very clever and they can grow them in other ways. And you can grow them quicker if you graft them. But I still will hunt down walnuts that I find somewhere where a tree is healthy and old. It does not make the biggest walnuts, but it makes walnuts. Corellas. There's lots of them in the area. There's a large flock in Warragul now. They've been here about 10 years. They don't come here very often, but they do come. This is a yellow birch, or Allegheny birch, Betula allegheniensis, and both of them are used to make birch wine, birch beer, birch tea. The Indians would also eat the inner bark of the birch in hard times because it contains sugars. White people will kill these and grind them up, steam distill them to extract that oil, but the Indians just used to use small branches medicinally, and it's altered chemically just slightly to make artificial oil of wintergreen, which is used in the liniments, sprains, and injuries for human beings. It causes a redness of the skin, it increases blood flow in an area. It's actually a medicine that works. It's also very beautiful. I've only seen 3 of them, and this is number 3.